or perhaps challenging and radical ideas, but which we must listen and encompass if we are actually to ensure that with this vision of a human-centric internet, we are taking account of all of the views that could mean that we could actually get there. And of course, there will be people, even here in the audience, to say, well, that all sounds very, very fluffy. That sounds very impractical. What exactly are you going to do? And truly, we are having that discussion internally. Already in our research work program in 1920, we will be launching actions where we will be getting the research community to address some of these specific hard-nosed issues. But we have to have the discussion about the governance of the internet, about the objectives and where we want the internet to go. But how do we integrate the ethics, the rules, the principles of European society into guiding framework for the internet? Now, to help us shape our future internet, we're having the discussion today, and we want the discussion to take place elsewhere. But I am very happy to welcome a group of experts who are going to say some very interesting things, and we're going to have a discussion with you on the basis of what has been said. So I'm going to ask each of them to make a brief presentation, and then we will have a discussion with questions with you from the floor. So first I would like to welcome Lisbeth Mosnik, who's from the Austrian Federal Ministry of Transport and who's responsible for research and technological innovation, to give your views. Please, Lisbeth.
So, hello. I would like to tell you why the Austrian community, the Austrian researchers, want to build up a vision for the next generation internet. And I have a very short answer for you. It is, we want to shape the human-centered internet in the post-digitization age. And I have a more complex answer for you. We want to see Europe in the driver's seat again. And this has a lot to do with the structure of the internet nowadays. So in the internet, you see communication technologies which are developed by large and global enterprises on the one hand, and you see services which are provided also by large and a few enterprises, like Google or Facebook. And because of this structure, we think it's like that the European and innovative companies face challenges in introducing new technologies and services in the internet. So technology transfer is like a mission nearly impossible, and this is why we call for for special framework conditions. And one of the first steps we say in Austria that we should take is to build up and to support to build up establishing or to establish ecosystems. Ecosystems where researchers collaborate together with manufacturers, with system integrators, system providers, and also with the end users. And also with the public sector, as the public sector will play an important role also in these ecosystems as end user and also as a supplier. So, I would say if we don't act now, Europe, so we will remain like the appendix of the American ecosystems, and Europe might only be competitive in some application fields in the internet. So from this point of view, the call for the next generation internet is like a wake-up call for Europe. And not only for the politicians, also for us, I would say. So next week, I would like to give you an example how we do it in Austria. Next week, we are organizing a workshop in the frame of the National ICT Conference, and a workshop where we want to bring in more point of views and to motivate new stakeholders in discussing the next generation internet. We will even work with pupils, with Austrian pupils. They will give us input how they will see the future in 20 years, more or less. Because we think that in 20 years we will see new behaviors, and we should be aware of this, and this is why we should bring in the views of the youngsters already now. In Austria, in designing our vision, we are convinced that it's important to, at the first step, also to specify assumptions, how the world will be in 20 years, from technological side, but also, of course, from the social side. We are aware that research on acceptance will be very important in order to shape the human-centered internet of European origin. Ethical and privacy aspects will play an important role, and we also have to define the added value of the next generation internet. And then, after defining all these preconditions, we will be able to derive the technological requirements for NGI. So you have mentioned before already the work program of ICT, where we already defined the technologies for the future. But we in Austria think before doing this, we need to elaborate our vision. And it's obvious this process should be an open process. We want to bring in the point of views of a wide range of stakeholders. And yeah, I would say we should start now, and we should start here in Europe.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth. So now our next speaker is an industrialist, but no, he's actually an entrepreneur and a thinker. But I would like to welcome to the stage Sanyu Karani, who's going to give us his view on the next generation internet.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Piers, for inviting me to this panel, Nicole for organizing it. I'm honored to be here, flattered to be called an expert. As an entrepreneur, you get called many things. Expert is the nicest things that I've been called, I can assure you that. I'll try to give the view of the startups, the industrialists, the digital companies trying to go into manufacturing, the manufacturing companies trying to go into digital. I was reading ways of trying to listen to the market and to the user, but I think that would be a nice way of kicking off the debate later. So thank you for your time, and I will join you now here.
Please do, yeah.
Okay,
There, yep. Thank you, Sanyu. So already several appeals and even a question, but in terms of, from Lisbeth, are making sure that we have an open process, that we include all stakeholders, and from Sanyu, making sure that we are listening and including the user. And now, from another perspective, I'd like to welcome Alexander Webel to the stage. He's the professor at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. So here, a third perspective. Please, Alexander.
Okay. Thank you very much. I obviously am encouraged by what my colleagues here are already saying. It's all about communication. I spent my life and my career working on technologies to improve communications. Unfortunately, things aren't always as simple. First of all, listening to everyone, the first thing that you notice, of course, in Germany is that you can't because you speak different languages. And of course, then the answer is, let's all learn English or speak in English, like we're doing now. But that's strange too, because why should people with 23 languages speak only one, particularly as the one country that speaks that language is even leaving the European, or maybe not, whichever. But it is at least a debate.
There are Irishmen in the room, be careful.
Okay. In any event, it's a challenge. You know, you want to make sure that the cultures and language diversity is maintained and supported, while at the same time to be able to listen to everyone. So if we can play one little video here real quick. It's
to Spain after college, and with my iPhone, I checked out hostels before booking them, shared pictures as I went. My mom loved that. And I even downloaded this app, which became my personal translator. Where's the train station?
¿Dónde está la estación de tren?
All I really needed was my iPhone and my passport.
This was a product we developed in 2009. It was the first speech translator on a phone. It was culminating 25 years of research where we worked on this ever since 1990. And through AI and data and increased digital media, we were able to actually succeed to bring this on phone. Now it's, of course, everywhere. Microsoft and Google and many other companies now have products like that. This company was bought by Facebook at the time, so I spent 2 years at Facebook building the translation technologies for Facebook. So if you click on Translate, this was the team that started it. Let's play the second video real quick. So since I returned to the university,
let me
this
begin
is
my
what we're
talk.
doing
It
now.
is, of
It's a
course,
simultaneous interpretation service we're running at the university, where automatically anybody who speaks in one language gets a simultaneous interpretation in the other. Let's put the audio.
Practice exchange and communication, and in Europe in particular, it is a mandate for all of Europe to integrate regardless of language separation. Now, on one side, there might be some who might argue we should just all speak the same language, but at the same time, there's an opposing trend that insists on the cultural diversity, on the beauty, identity, language, culture, and custom of each language and each country. Okay. And that pride in the individualism must be...
So this is an example of what we run regularly at University of Karlsruhe at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. It's a service, simultaneous interpretation for foreign students. We're now expanding to Arabic, in particular with the refugee crisis, so that foreigners can come and study at a German university, even though a German lecture is being held, or when the speaker speaks English, you can pick your choice, you can pick your language. We even support the local dialect, Swabish in Germany, with a particular variant of that. Okay, enough said about this. This is what we do in our research. And what it leads to is a greater discussion and an ability to listen to everyone, even if they speak different languages and from different cultures. But what in general happens, of course, in the internet is that more and more of us will talk to each other. And that, of course, comes with lots of additional problems, namely the data flood. We become essentially a society where we're overwhelmed with all of this, and we have an opportunity to broadcast our strengths as well as our weaknesses. So when our colleagues saying, let's listen to each other, that's wonderful, but in some cases who shouldn't be listening or must not be listening, if it is hate speech, if it is bullying, if it is cyber crime, if it's terrorism, and so forth. So drawing the boundaries in a society where all of this is going on is really very difficult. Now, my plaidoyer is that we develop technologies as well as with the policyholders, work closely together, and have to increase the speed at which policy and technical solutions can oppose these bad trends, so we can take advantage of the positive while at the same time avoiding the negative. Because with the magnification of the internet that we're getting, the acceleration of artificial intelligence, we will be confronted with our best parts of humanity as well as the worst parts, because they're all global, they're permanent, they're fast, they're immediately available to everybody. And so it is a challenge for us to come up with reasonable policies as well as technologies to oppose these trends. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Okay, we're going to put it straight to the floor, but I just wonder, is there any point? Because we have the view that we need to listen to the user, but industry who says, well, we can do that. That's what we do. We build a business case. Governments say that, of course, we have to be open. What we have to do is in a research program, and really that means we're only going to be talking to the usual stakeholders who know what a research program is. And then academia is already working on some of the key interfaces, such as language translation. So there's really no problem. The next generation internet is there, or the internet is going to develop itself, and we're all wasting our time. Is that a useful perspective? Come on.
I don't think so. And this is why we are working on our vision. We think it will, a human-centered internet, like we also see the next generation internet, will not just come like that. If, then it would maybe be here already.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree with what Alexander said. It's very difficult to listen to the user, and there is a lot of noise. But I think we shouldn't focus on the answers now. I think we should focus on the questions still.
Yeah.
I think we tend to try and look at the answer when we didn't get the questions right. And I think we're at the stage where we still need to get the questions right, meaning these three assumptions that you said now, are they the pillars, or should we challenge those assumptions and get the questions right?
Alexander?
Yeah, let me respond. I just make sure I'm not misunderstood. I'm not someone who's a technophobic. In Europe, we tend to overly sometimes emphasize the negative. But I think it is a race. We have to be sure that we are opposing the bad things before they overwhelm and basically eliminate the medium altogether.
Yes.
And there is going on a lot of manipulation of the media already. You see this in the news. Political processes are already being subverted massively because the medium is so powerful. It's obviously going to attract lots of opposing trends and evil in society and in people to be active.
Great.
And
I'm going to put it to the audience. I'm going to stop you, Alexander, because I just wanted to make sure that I was talking rubbish. And more importantly, Sanyu has said it, is exactly what I wanted to hear said, is that we have to ask the questions. And now you have questions. So if anybody has... Nicole is here with the microphone. Could you please, if you want to ask a question, if you want to say something, this is now the opportunity. Please put up your hand. If you could just briefly identify yourself.
I'm Niels Bjørn Andersen, professor at Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. I'm kind of disappointed that when you talk about next generation of internet, you talk about some applications of translation, which of course is fantastic, but and you don't have to ask the users to find out that one of the major problems in the internet is that we do not have center responsibility. Every one of us have to protect ourselves, which is stupid. If you take things like car insurance in the US, since you are not forced to take out a car insurance, everybody must take out insurance against idiots who drive into you, because you must protect yourself. And that's the same way we have with the internet. We should have some center responsibility. We are getting something like big companies are getting, one of the big companies at home, they're getting 80,000 vira per hour. 67% of these come from servers which have been up less than 24 hours. Less than 24 hours. We're having 4,000 ransomware attacks per month. It's time that we try to think of something which is radically better than the current internet, where 90% of the Hotmail messages are actually virus. We got to go back and say, who is sending this? And get at them. Before that, we will not have a good, a safe internet to serve neither the entrepreneurs or the users or whoever.
Thank you. So there are several challenging points. One, we have to instill a sense and have a sense of responsibility. But of course, our work in security is necessary if we want to overcome the trust problem. And if anyone says to us, you're disappointed in the things that we've talked about, that's exactly the discussion we have to have. What are we not talking about? Is our level of ambition the right one? Who else would like to ask a question? Please. Yeah, just keep going.
I have the similar comment that the theme is Internet of Things. It is different from future Internet because you are talking now about human-to-human communication over Internet. You are talking about human-to-machine communication over Internet, but the main problem is machine-to-machine communication. We create a complex system and we don't know how the communication will behave, how the machine will behave. All the operational systems, all the protocols are developed with best effort. We hope that it will work how we would like, but it is not true. Then in such a complex system, may something happen what we didn't expect before, and it is not so easy to correct situation in complex system. Then I think that we have to think about communication between millions of small machines. Thank you.
Now, so far we've had two speakers from the floor. Would the panel like to react to anything that you've heard?
Yeah, I don't think centralizing control is necessarily a good solution, but I think there is technology that's able to empower individuals to control what they are being fed in a better way. I mean, for example, spam filters already do that to some extent, but I think with for example, public opinion, there too, there are technical things. For example, when media is subverted, is the source credible, is it not? There are technical things that can be done to allow people to have filters that appropriately rank information as opposed to just feeding people what they want to hear, what they hear anyway.
Well, I'm going to get back to, I don't know is it machine to machine, is it cybersecurity? I'm not sure what is the core thing, and I am not sure how they need to be prioritized, and that's why I suggested that we should be listening to the people and the user of what they see. It's in the center, of course. It's not only of, there will be as many opinions on where to start or what's the core as people you ask. That's what I'm starting to realize. And I'm not sure if the security element, which obviously it's oxygen, if we don't have it, then we cannot have the rest. It's really an enforcement on a technology problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah, privacy, security, we see this as a main point we have to work on for the next generation internet. But we don't have a solution yet, I guess.
Well, maybe we should also reflect on the question with regard to the fact that if so much of the effort, and that includes work being done and promoted by the European Commission and in our research programs, is on the industrial side of the internet, it's on machine to machine, it's on developing the processes. This is one of the reasons why we think that we have to think about the user, we have to think about the citizen, the individual. It obviously doesn't mean that we are abandoning all of the other work, because we want all sectors of economy and industry to develop. That is necessary for the economic fabric that supports society. But we have to make sure that we are making space to think about all of those issues that confront the user, but also how can we take advantage of all of this technology being developed to put the user at the center. So again, that's the Commission's thinking, but we'd love to hear your ideas, and I'm sure there must be other questions and other points of view. And are there anyone at the back? Please, the microphone's coming down to you, but it's not because you're at the back, you're benefiting from the lovely air conditioning, but you have to work for your air conditioning here. Okay. Please.
Thank you. I'm Joe Woods. I come from a startup, but I've done some work in Foresight. I have a couple of concerns. If you go back, when Henry Ford invented the automobile, they asked him, he says, if I had to ask the people what they wanted for transportation, they would have said that they needed faster carriages. So Henry Ford made a quantum leap, and he developed the automobile. If we go back in 1947, the gentleman reminded me about Tim Berners-Lee, but before Tim Berners-Lee, where is the internet coming from? It's coming from the vision of a man. His name is Vannevar Bush, which in 1947 wrote a paper. It's called What is to be Done? The United States, the scientific community had come just out of the war, and they wanted to say, and they had, listen, we have all these capacities, what are we going to do next? And in that paper is actually written the future of the internet. It was called MEMEX. You seem to have the impression that the next generation, at least I get the impression, it could be semantics, is an incremental.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That's not the way that the internet and that technology is working today. Today it's in leaps and bounds and in quantum leaps. And unless we have people with vision who can think 15, 20 or 30 years down the road, we're just doing incrementalization. And I don't think that is the future of the internet. One small thing, I conducted a brief survey with 100 children, aged 13 approximately, females and males. And I asked them, how many of you use the internet? And 100 of them lift their fingers. And then I asked them, what is the internet? And some would say it's social media, it's Facebook, it's WhatsApp, it's this and that and the other one. Not one of them mentioned the word network. So here we have a conglomeration of millions of young people, youths, adults, and what have you, which are using something and they don't even know what it is. I'll give you a small down so that we can understand what I'm talking about. I, like thousands and millions of other people, use an ATM from a bank. I have a card, I put in my number, and it gives me money when there is money, and so on and so forth. That doesn't mean I know how the banking system works. I just put in my card. We have millions of people who are just putting a card in the internet thinking that they know the internet. And I think one of the failures that we are doing is that we're not educated at school level, okay, what it is, what it is growing to be, and how I can utilize it for the better of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you. More than two very important points, and very well received. Thank you. By the way, it might be partly about semantics, and I'm not very happy with next generation internet because that was used for the first time over 20 years ago. But let's help us on that. But it's the deeper understanding, the issues that you're now drilling down to, where we really need to know. And if it's not incremental, the work that we're trying to do is, well, what is it that people feel they need? Not the technology, but what is it that they need in terms of principles so that others will help us to apply those for whatever shape the next generation technology takes, albeit if it's completely dramatic change. So again, we have to future-proof our own thinking here. But thank you, that's very useful also on the education and skills. Anyone at the back? Nope. You please.
Artur Binczewski, Poznań Supercomputing Networking Center. I have one comment because you make a priority for the end users and the startups. I don't think that is only one way, because as you see, the research, what was mentioned regarding, for example, speech recognitions, how many years of the basic research was needed for the achieve this kind of the technology. It means that we should not forget about some research what is made in the industry, in the big companies, as well in the academia. And for me, the program, what will be so for the future, for the NGI, should be a kind of the balanced. Of course, we should support end users, startups, but not forget about the other main players in this kind of the race. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now that's two more points we've had from the floor. So again, I'd like to go back to the panel. Anything that you'd like to say in response to what you've heard?
Well, I agree. If you ask the user, they'll tell you 16 horses, not the car. But the problem is that the user is nowhere in the center right now. And I think that listening to it, it's trying a way of putting it in the center. On my Poznan colleague, I also agree. It's a stakeholder engagement process, but I am faced with startups and SMEs day by day, and I have more faith that they will bring the quantum leap that bunch of us sitting in a room here trying to figure it out. So, and that is because they listen to the user and they build a business model for that. So,
yeah, I welcome your comment on the research or development side of it. I think it's very important to continue funding and supporting the fundamental research, because that's where the ideas and the creative ideas coming from. And I think Europe in general is doing it actually quite well in on this front. It needs to be continued and strengthened, but I think what needs to be also accelerated is a transition into startup companies. I'm encouraged by what you're saying, but it is something that is working slower here in Europe than in America, for example, and also have a more vibrant venture capitalist and mergers and acquisition community to transfer this, and perhaps also a faster regulatory process to respond to the changes that come with these intellectual chain developments. That is still all very much dominated by what the United States is doing. This process is actually working faster there, and so I think it is something that I strongly encourage, that there would be a stronger community, both on the business side as well as the regulatory side.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I would just like to bring up the point of the definition, next generation internet. In Austria, we also think this is not a good definition for what we are researching for, doing for. We are maybe thinking about a definition, and our idea now is to talk about the post-digitizing age, to get an idea of what we really think about the next generation internet.
The important thing, thank you, is that we understand what we are talking about, and we were told already about semantics, but also that it might be limiting our vision, that we've been criticized already. Very positive and helpful criticism. I wanted to take another question, but I have a duty to let you go so that everyone can be in the plenary room at 2 o'clock. So I just wanted to say very quickly in wrapping up that this lightning talk was an ability just to expose you to some of our thinking, and hopefully to get you to make critical comments and ask questions, not only of us, but to yourselves and to others, so that we can continue this discussion. I'd be very grateful if you could contribute further. We have an ongoing consultation. Look at our websites, look at look at Future Networks, and look at NGI, I beg your pardon, the NGI webpage. Futurium is also running a consultation. And it is a way where in the future we will be gathering from those who input a community of people who can actually guide us and make some of these very critical indications to us so that we are on the right track. It's the beginning of a discussion. We don't have the answers, but we have to make sure that we are asking the right questions. I would just say this discussion will first of all to continue in 2 weeks' time. We have the Net Futures Conference in Brussels on the 28th and the 29th of June in Brussels. Please go on to the Net Futures 2017 page and you will see all about registration. It's very easy, it's very cheap, and it is really worthwhile because it is the topic of this 2-day conference, the next generation internet, where are we going? I'd really like to thank the 3 speakers, Alexander, Lisbeth and Sanyu. Thank you very much, and for you for coming and for your participation. Please stay plugged into this discussion. Thank you very much. And now, 2 o'clock in the plenary room. Yeah, thanks to you. Thank you.